hand over to our last speaker for today, Keith Robe, who's Lake UK's customs expert. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Hilary. Afternoon, everybody. I'll just get my screen up to share here, if you bear with me. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see this. Well, what I'm looking at here in this final part, essentially, are some of the areas that certainly Julian touched on with regard to mitigations outside of the rules of origin. I think both Niall and Julian explained in some detail how and what you need to do to meet the rules of origin to get nil rates of duty when you're moving goods to or from the EU. There will be certain circumstances where you don't meet those requirements of the rules of origin, whether it be the maximum non-originating materials or whether it be the change of tariff heading. Quite a few businesses do fall into that category, and we've probably heard in some of the questions one or two businesses who are in that situation. So what we do then is we fall back onto the customs special procedures, which give you in some cases, you may call it a safety net in regard to other areas where you can mitigate the costs of import duty, depending on your Incoterms and depending on your liability to import duty and VAT. So I haven't got too much time, but I'll cover the main areas, and most of them were spoken about to some degree in the previous presentations. We're looking at customs warehousing, inward and outward processing, temporary admission, and authorised use. I'll take you through those individual special procedures, but I've also included at the end just a quick slide on common transit, which again was touched upon with a view to mitigating and hanging on to the rule of origin and the origin status of the goods. But the special procedures have been around a long time, and they're mirrored by the UK and the EU, allowing imports to the UK in essence, suspending duties and VATs, and in some cases actually mitigating the full cost. Customs warehouse has been touched on. Customs warehouse is becoming very popular in the sense of it's not just the EU. You can import any goods into the UK if you're an authorised customs warehouse keeper. And I must stress that this is a customs warehouse and there is a requirement for an authorisation. We're not just talking about your own individual storage area and warehouse within the premises. So you have to apply to be a formal customs warehouse. But it does allow you to bring in goods from both the EU and third countries into the UK and suspend the duty. This basically gives you, at the very least, a cash flow benefit in the sense of you only have to pay import duty and VAT in the UK when you remove the goods from the warehouse, and it will actually save you having to pay that customs duty and import VAT if you export directly from your customs warehouse, bearing in mind since the 1st of January, a movement into any of the EU member states qualifies as an export. Can be a physical location, doesn't necessarily have to be a building, it has to be a secure area. But in that context, it was interesting listening to certainly what Julian was saying about goods retaining their origin status, providing they don't fall into free circulation in the UK. I know there were one or two complications there, perhaps a couple of wrinkles that we might need to iron out to confirm that, but certainly bringing goods into a customs warehouse is not free circulation, therefore suspends the duty, and that might be one of the mitigations that helps with the throughput of materials or goods that are coming from the from the EU and being returned in the same state. The thing about the customs warehouse is you're not able to do anything but very basic maintenance on the goods in the warehouse. No processing is allowed under that authorization. Moving on to inward processing and outward processing, again, two very popular customs special procedures, and they're available on both sides of the channel, if I can call it that, and the Irish Sea and the North Sea, in the sense of it's the EU have these same processes. So From an importer's point of view, if you're bringing in goods to carry out the process, then you can be authorised for inward processing. It suspends the import duty and VAT, and providing you're exporting those goods back out of the UK, you never have to pay the the UK duty and VAT. Outward processing, almost a mirror image, but it allows you to send out UK goods that you are having processed in the EU or elsewhere, third countries, bring those goods, those finished products back in without having to pay the full value import duty on those goods. It refers there to added value. So if you're sending something out and it was worth £1,000 and it was coming back in after having some process carried out on it and it was now worth £1,250, then providing you're authorised for outward processing, you only pay the import duty on the additional £250. Now, inward processing and outward processing between UK businesses and EU customers and clients, providing if they got their act together and the inward processing side was carried out by the EU, the UK side, and the German supplier, if we're using Germany as an example, was authorised for outward processing. That's one way of minimising any duty payments on both sides of the equation there. So both outward and inward processing is something that can mitigate where rules of origin don't actually give you any relief. You can use IP and OP for more or less any goods. Unlike the rules of origin, the processing side of it is a lot less restrictive, and some of the processing can be quite minimal. Bearing in mind there is a difference in that under rules of origin, the processing has to be significant enough to change the goods. But under inward and outward processing, that's not quite the case. So for those businesses who don't meet the rules of origin and who are looking for processing of goods inwards or outwards, it'll be worthwhile to look at inward and outward processing. As it says on the final point there, the authorization holder doesn't need to own the goods, and that's quite often the case in the sense of you're bringing goods in that belong to a third party. You're the specialist carrying out those processes. I think one point I would make at the moment that has cropped up quite a few times with my conversations with various Make UK members is that if you don't own the goods and you're bringing them into process, then under the VAT regulations, you're not entitled to claim the VAT back as input tax on your VAT returns. So you can, it's something to watch out for, you can be authorised for inward processing just to cover your liability for the VAT on import and to suspend it, even if the goods that you're bringing in carry a nil rate of duty under the UK global tariff. It's a point to bear in mind I thought I would mention because it does crop up and may catch a few people out. I've certainly had queries saying, well, the duty rate is nil, why do we need to do that? Well, if you don't own the goods, any VAT that you're charged on import is not reclaimable by you as input tax. Temporary admission, again, this has been touched on. If goods are not intended to remain in the UK, and again, this is reflected in the EU regulations under the Union Customs Code, you can bring goods in under the temporary admission rules. As long as those goods are coming in, never intending to remain in the UK, providing you meet certain conditions, then you can bring those goods in up to certainly standard 24 months without any additional requirements. But that 24 months can, in certain circumstances, be extended, providing you deal with the HMRC supervising office and explain the need for that particular time period to be extended. Providing you do the correct customs declarations, keep the records of the goods going out and coming in, then temporary admission might be another way of mitigating the costs of import duties. Approved use, quite specific, but I thought I would include that in this. It used to be called end use, for those of you who might be familiar with this term, whilst the UK was part of the EU. If you're bringing in goods in the manufacture of certain described and approved areas, then you can gain relief from import of those materials. And I've listed some of the areas there that qualify. Common areas and the main areas are the manufacture of civil aircraft, including parts of those civil aircrafts can come in as part of the manufacture in those areas. Manufacturer who are involved in ship works and some of the other areas there. So if you're involved in any of those areas and you're looking to mitigate the costs and your rules of origin not doing the trick for you, then certainly you need to have a look at approved use and see what the requirements are for your particular industry in order for you to reduce your costs or relieve them of the duty payment. Now, again, transit was mentioned, and there were certainly one or two areas of the previous presentations that set a little flag up for me and something that I'd be interested in. Transit has been around a long time, and the UK, and one of its first signatories following the Brexit result was to sign up to the Common Transit Convention. It means that whilst we were part of the EU, we operated under the Union Transit process. It's simply moved across, referred to now as Common Transit, but it does mean that you can actually move goods across EU borders, and those signatories to the Common Transit Convention without the need to make customs declaration at the frontier. And one of the main advantages of that is speedier clearance at the border points going into the EU, and making a declaration at the end point. Say your goods are going to Germany, so you don't have to make a customs declaration at that point when the goods enter France, for example. But you've opted, as long as you're authorised to do this, you've opted to make that customs declaration at the final customer in Germany. There is a separate declaration system, the new computerised transit system, NCTS, that you need to have access to in some way, shape or form, and to be authorised to use this system. But it was very interesting what Julian was saying about is maintaining the status of goods of EU origin, providing you can transit them to a UK warehouse, and then from a warehouse transit them across back into the member states, and that may preserve the EU status, and certainly that's something that's worth looking at. As far as the transit system itself is concerned, it's one of the few areas left where you still you're required by HMRC to put a guarantee in place. This is to ensure that the movement of the goods is covered in case anything was to go wrong, or the final destination, the transit procedure wasn't properly finalised. To put it in a nutshell, essentially, it's a parallel declaration system. A declaration needs to be put into the new computerised transit system when the goods move. A final declaration needs to be put in at the end of the movement of those goods, if it's a direct movement in that case, on the German side of it. You do still need to make an export declaration from the UK and an import declaration into the German customs, but it does remove that pinch point for getting goods across and into the EU post-Brexit. With that, I think a very swift run through what we've discussed throughout this, I guess, but I don't know that we've got any time for any questions, have we at all?
Don't think so. Maybe we just take one just now, a quick one.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? Is it allowable to do minimal processing within a customs warehouse? So, for example, EU steel plate is flame cut in half, then sent to Republic of Ireland, and this company would aim to use the T2 transit procedure.
I think is the question about the minimum processing within the warehouse rather than the
Yes.
next stage, the transiting thing. Yeah, there are. If you look at the gov.uk guidance on customs warehousing, there are quite a few bullet points about what explaining what is allowable within a customs warehouse. It essentially boils down to maintenance and keeping the condition of the goods that are in the warehouse up to scratch. So cleaning, oiling, covering, things like that. Actually, you can actually cut. For example, if you had large steel rods, you are allowed to actually cut them into smaller shapes under the customs regulations, the customs warehouse regulation. But once you start doing anything over and above basic minimum maintenance of those goods, you need to be looking at inward processing to manage that. And inward processing and customs warehousing can sit alongside each other, so you can have both authorizations and switch your product between one and the other.
Okay, I think really we'll have to leave it at that. If you need any further information, Keith and Make UK offer a service to cover off any sort of in-depth queries, and Aaron will paste a link for the website into the chat now. Our next webinar is on Thursday, the 18th of February, again, same time, noon until 1:30, and it will cover off trading with Northern Ireland. So thank you again for joining today. You'll get a follow-up pack with the links to the webinar, which will be on our website, and a copy of the slides. And you can contact us, our experts and consultants, at any time on brexit@makeuk.org. Thanks ever so much for joining. Bye-bye.